8th. It's the policy subcommittee meeting. We'll start with the one for attendance. Rob, we'll start with you.
Rob Mezzanotte, Assistant Superintendent.
Kenny Duva, Superintendent.
Karen Earl, School Committee Chair.
Andrew Hennius, Attorney for the committee.
Jennifer Lima, school committee member.
Rachel Santa, Director of People Personnel Services.
Awesome. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Just for clarification, the voting members are Rob, Ken, Aaron, and myself. Okay, so, there's 3 policies on the agenda for this evening. It's not the right agenda.
You move forward.
Huh?
You're in it. The 4-8 one?
Oh, I'm in the, yeah, that's not the right one. Post-protection.
It didn't seem like they had the items for tonight.
Yeah, no, it is. The 3 that are on here are hate speech, administration of medical marijuana, and investigative and administrative league. I figure we'll tackle the second 2 first, because those already have a pretty firm draft. Ken, do you have a preference which one?
Did you say the second two?
Medical marijuana and administrative leave.
You want to start with the administrative leave?
Sure. So this goes back to a recommendation from Judge McGurl's report.
We don't ever say it's pretty cut and dry, or this one will be quick. Those are things we do not say here.
This one goes back to a recommendation from Judge McGurl's report about having a process in place for when somebody is put on administrative leave due to an investigation, and this was a draft. Andrew, do you remember where this draft came from?
I'm trying to remember, I know we pulled it, I think from a private sector something, and then just kind of cleaned it up and started to play around with it a little bit.
Right, right. So basically, this would be what would happen if an employee is the subject of an investigation and had been placed on leave. It's just to kind of document some of the practices in terms of the communication with the employee, removing the employee from the premises, ensuring that they don't take any property with them, and ensuring that, due process is followed in terms of the investigation.
I just have.
So this is completely brand new, does not exist anywhere else, right?
Correct.
Just, I wanted to make sure I was
Yep.
understanding that correct.
Oh, that is there. Okay, so my only suggestion is in E. It's a human resource, it says human resources, I would put / superintendent shall also notify the school committee.
I'm wondering if we should add to employee consultative, I can't talk tonight, consultants to the district. Cause we.
Yeah,
have
like
quite a
people
few
that are working
third-
here, like, the third part, like a
We have a
substitute
lot of
teacher, or
third
the third-party people that you have.
And then we have clinical consultants too, so I just wondered.
Does that
if-
fall under, like, staff in theory, though?
I think that came up when we discussed this policy
I
before, to
think
be
so.
honest
It just
with you.
say not limited to, but there was an example of one of those type of folks in the list, so that's why it made me think of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have language around
Under
that in
applicability, it says
the BCI
consultants.
policy, right?
Under applicability,
Yeah, it says consultants, et cetera.
Okay. Oh, that's where I saw, I see it now, up at
I
the top.
actually remember that coming up when we first talked about this.
Okay.
I'm wondering, instead of et cetera, could we come up with something else?
Is
Oh,
not
that's
limited.
not
I think
flexible.
if it says if it is not limited to, that's implied.
Yeah, and especially
You
when
could
you
just
have
say and
applicability
coaches.
that specifically says consultants, so I
Yeah.
think you're
Yep.
fine.
I think
But
it's
just end it, and consultants, period, no et cetera, right?
Yeah, I would just take that.
Oh,
But
this
if-
one doesn't say like it does below.
we need,
up to including, but is not limited to.
we need to put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe right where it says including, so this policy applies to all of the employees of the district, including but not limited to employees affiliated with the collective bargaining unit, coaches, and consultants.
Okay.
I'm wondering if number F, instead of in a secure manner, it should just say securely, the very last place.
Maybe just secure?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, securely or secure, just seemed kind of awkward.
Something that wasn't in here, but I don't know if it should be or shouldn't be, was about, and just follow the journey here for a second, about like letting the, like I'm trying to think of a time that with letting the community know or like staff know, like there was a lot of questions and confusion about that policy about like, okay, if someone's placed on administrative leave and there's
Yeah.
investigation happening, what should and shouldn't be communicated to the greater community of like parents and whatnot, and then also like the internal staff community. Like I remember some real confusion about that, and I'm not quite sure what we would put in, but just when thinking about like what different steps would happen, I think that might be important to clarify so that we're being consistent on it.
Andrew, legally speaking, I always understood there to be some pretty significant
Yeah.
restrictions around communication on this.
Yeah, I mean, so I was just checking to see if we had anything in there, but we don't. I mean, generally speaking, it's
What we write in might be, you will not communicate this to the
Yeah.
community. Like I'm not advocating for
Yeah.
communicating
but
anything
depending on the nature
confidential,
of the
but
position,
yes.
I mean, like if it's a building principal or something like that, there is typically a
Yeah,
communication
so
that goes
like-
out. Mr. Hennius will not be. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't say much.
It would just be, it could be something just vague, there's just like generally saying so-and-so is on leave.
Yeah.
It could be for, we don't
Or
specify
an
the reason.
administrator
Yeah,
having
it
placed
could be,
on leave, or has
just-
been
yeah,
placed on
yeah.
leave.
It could even
Yeah.
be something as simple as like the superintendent is the one that communicates about
I
it.
was-
Like
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like
I was
not
just about to say
yeah.
that might be the way to do it. Any communication relative to this issue should go through the superintendent's
Yeah.
office, and the superintendent can decide.
And then at that
We
point,
need a press
what are we
release for this.
saying, or-
Yeah, you don't want that way
Yeah.
it's clear. The principal shouldn't be saying
Yeah.
something. It's clear.
Yeah.
Other teachers shouldn't be saying anything.
You
And
don't
then-
want teachers emailing parents saying blah blah blah's out
Yeah.
on leave. Like I feel like you have to direct it somewhere, and then depending on the situation,
Perfect.
the superintendent can make the determination.
So
So
that
I would
is,
add something in
Yeah,
like
like
that.
it is in here for
Like that's
E.
open.
It says human resources with input from the superintendent or designee shall prepare as necessary notes to staff, students, and the community advising them of the
Okay.
situation.
So was
I
there.
think that takes care of it.
Okay. Do we want to specifically say, like,
Yeah, like I was thinking, like
Only them,
only-
should only them, yeah, something like that.
Maybe just start,
yeah, like I feel like it needs to be really clear, and then I wasn't sure if we wanted any.
I think you should say all communication on it goes from here, you know. Will prepare as necessary notice to staff, I would say all communication regarding the situation
so,
will be through human resources input from the superintendent or just from the superintendent.
Maybe like add the first sentence to it, like in the
Yeah.
beginnings, like what Rachel's kind of referring to. All communications regarding investigation administrative leave shall come from the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
all internal and external?
Yeah.
There you go, I think that's more clear.
Communication regarding the, what did you say regarding?
Regarding investigative and administrative leave.
Shall only come from.
Shall come from only the superintendent or their designee. And then human resource, blah, 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 yeah.
Is there anything about?
Yep.
Yep.
And I might have missed it. Was there anything about ride in here?
Informing
That's after the
ride?
investigation.
Yeah, but,
As soon as you put someone out on leave, you have to
Yeah.
notify RIDE.
yeah.
That's true.
Probably the way to do it, if we have it, would be to say any and all administrative or state agencies shall be notified.
Yeah.
Because if it's obviously hands-on, you may have to notify DCYF.
Yeah.
So why
Yeah.
don't you just add to human resources superintendent shall notify the school committee and all,
Mhm.
what Andrew
The
you
legal
just said.
speak that Andrew just said.
Yeah, the legally sounding state people.
She'll also notify
We have it on
the
tape
school
too, if you
committee
don't remember what you said.
and-
Yeah, we
That's
forgot
my
now.
new
So what was that phrase used for RIDE? State regulatory agency?
State
There we go,
regulatory
that was
agencies,
it.
yep.
and
Good job.
any-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tired today, so I couldn't keep it.
So
And
I,
then I can-
I separated it, I put E as just about the who's gonna communicate, and then I put F,
Mhm.
human resources superintendent shall also notify the school committee and any required state regulatory agencies.
There you go.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I like that separate. I think that's a good idea.
Do we need to put anything about that to correspond with the policy about being noticed for like school committee like when it gets to the point, if it got to the point where a recommendation was being made to the school committee?
I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this just applies to when we're putting them out on leave,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I
But
think
it talks about the end of the process though,
Yeah.
and talks about it all the way through, so there's pieces that are a little bit,
So the end of the process says,
like, at the conclusion.
The employee shall be notified of the outcome and what further steps, including suspension, if
I mean, to
Any
me, that's
shall
where
be
that would
taken.
kick in, so if something further was gonna happen, I mean, it could end it with Ken, right? Ken could say, I'm going to put a letter in your file, the employee may not grieve it or let it go. So I mean, I think that probably covers it, because whatever steps happen in the
It
future.
fall
will-
into the
yeah,
rest.
exactly,
Okay.
yep,
That makes sense.
yeah, kinda leaves it
Yep.
inclusive there at the end.
yep. Or it could be no finding,
Right.
finding of no issue and come back to work.
Right.
Where does notifying the police fall into this policy? Are we covered there
I
as
would
far
say
as?
a letter, I would say that would be under E, where it's notifying any other state regulatory agency, right? Wouldn't
I
we
don't-
consider, I mean, 'cause it depends on what the situation is, right? So you're going, well,
I mean,
I think
we
we
could
need to
add
be a
or
little bit more clear.
local, or,
It could-
and/or police, I mean.
but it also could happen prior to that step, right? It really depends on the situation,
100%.
and I'm not sure if we would,
I think we, in this district, need to be very, very clear about all of the pieces when we're writing a policy, and so I would not assume that we would know to
I mean,
contact the police.
Yeah, I
if
don't
you look
think-
at letter B, I would say it goes in there.
B, as in boy?
Yes. This is the representative shall address any safety concerns arising out of the alleged or suspected misconduct, as well as the scope of any investigation and the need for preservation of evidence. The representative shall determine the roles and responsibilities in conjunction with the investigation, establish an action plan, and I think right there, if required,
necessary or
necessary
something, yeah.
notification to the, local
Local and
police
state
department
police,
as
yep.
well as Department of Children, Youth and Families, because that's
Mm-hmm.
what would happen as well.
Mm-hmm. What are you doing?
Get red.
No, it wouldn't be in the thingies, I don't think.
No?
I think it's the next sentence.
Yeah,
Separate.
so that's-
Yeah, it would-
Yeah.
that would be the last sentence.
If necessary.
Thank you for everyone understanding what
The thing
in
is,
the thingies meant.
Who determines if it's necessary?
that would be the administration, I think, based on what the
Right,
situation
she
is.
does it as either administrator or administration, I would keep it general.
Do we need to circle back out of the communicate, like back to the like close the communication loop? Like we've said that we're gonna send something out at the beginning. Should that be something as part of the end also?
Like to the staff, community, et cetera? Yeah. I would think that.
I would just put there like if necessary, cause it's not gonna be every situation
as
where you're going
needed,
to
yeah.
notify
Or-
the community of what the outcome was.
Yeah, you can almost even reference like if the community, like if a prior notification had gone out, you know, communicating the resolution, something like that.
And like any action under E above, like should be something like that?
From a like documentation standpoint, do we need to put things in writing at any point? From like, as far as what we're giving to the employee, et cetera?
100%.
All should
Is
be in
it-
writing, though. Everything should be in writing.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure the policy like outlines that, because it says, like on A, it says like prior to contact, the affected individual will meet face to face by telephone, you know, like there's some, like I was just wanna make sure it's clear that,
Probably right in I, right, at the conclusion of the well, are you talking about like a findings, or are you even just documenting the whole
Everything.
Even
process?
if it's with a letter.
You're talking about
Yeah.
I mean,
notifying,
like-
notifying them of being on leave?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Because, you know, the first thing is we tell them, we follow up with, you know, they receive something in writing saying that they're on
Yeah.
leave, what the reason is.
I think just
They
making
come
sure that
back,
that's
they
written
rec-
in
if
here
they come
is
back, they
important.
receive a letter saying that you're coming back, so I mean, all of that is,
Yeah, I think just making that
Documented
really
place in the
clear
file.
in here, again,
So I think we can add to A something along the lines of, prior to any contact with the employee, the affected individual's immediate supervisor shall meet with human resources and national or designated to discuss the appropriate course of action under circumstances. We're gonna add a sentence like, written correspondence will be provided to,
you can follow up
with appropriate details, I don't know.
actually, I would go
No.
under, I would go with C, cause if
After
looking at
review of
this,
the
right,
facts.
your B is, you know, beginning the investigation, C is after review of the facts, then you're notifying them, so I would
Yeah, okay, that's
think
true,
that would have to
yeah.
go
So
in
maybe
here.
even just shall be
C,
notified
just
in
because of
writing.
the way this is all.
Shall be notified in writing, yeah.
In writing of what?
I'm just thinking if we could do, add it
They have
to
been
the
placed.
above thing, Jen, like where it says the employee shall be notified,
Comma, in writing.
comma, in
Oh, I
writing,
gotcha.
And
yeah.
with the.
I'm trying to make it really clear.
Easy. So this is based on the circumstances, the employee may be escorted by a district representative to the appropriate exit from district facilities. I don't know if we define district representative, but like, I think we should make sure like that means, like,
Where are we now, sorry?
Letter D, last sentence.
This room is, the employee may be escorted by a district representative to the appropriate exit from district facilities. May be escorted by
maybe instead of representative, just put district administrator. Could a representative, could be a teacher, could be a.
Well, I guess that's my point, like,
custodian.
you don't want a teacher walking
Right.
the person
So
out.
Ken
would
saying
put-
district administrator.
Yeah.
Right.
I've
just
replaced that with
Instead of representative, put in administrator.
district administrator, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had that
Do,
problem in the
yeah,
different policy.
yeah, I think,
Do you want it to be a central administrator? Is that where you're going?
well, I just feel like before that there was a question about who the specific person should have been and whether the person, to ensure that the person who is actually executing that part of the
Has the
step
checklist of what
has
to
the
do.
checklist
Yep.
and
Knows
knows
what they're supposed to be
what
doing.
they're supposed to be doing. And obviously with the policy, it'll help, but I'm wondering if, we want to make it,
Who, I guess who are we envisioning? Are we envisioning it being like one of us?
I'm envisioning like the same thing, like human resources in conjunction with the superintendent or their designee.
Okay.
Like like Ken would say to you, Rob,
Yep.
go take care of this, not somebody would just on their own.
Right.
Well, it's also a lot for, although a building principal could be very capable of doing it, like if there's something going on, like.
Yeah, I feel like it's-
A leave that it could be, I mean, at times we've
Yeah.
had to.
Yes,
We receive the information, or we
Yeah,
give
yeah.
a call,
Yeah.
so-and-so needs to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So I think you could put like the idea would be like, it's like someone from district administration or designee, and if, like,
Yeah.
then the superintendent could designate that the principal needs to
Yep.
do it, but then they need to make sure that they follow the proper protocol, right? Like if Ken called a principal, they'd say, hey, you need to do this, and you need to make sure they don't take their laptop, they don't do this, they don't,
Right,
you know,
right,
like, so
Use
that
a-
sort of
a
like.
central office administrator or designate, something
Yeah,
like that,
something like that.
that way you guys could.
I've had to do that once.
Yeah, yeah.
or even like you just said, escorted by a district representative after direction from the superintendent, like, or their designee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does it say in there anywhere about, like temporary access, temporary restriction for like email?
So everything gets shut down when it gets on.
We do
Oh, I
have a
understand that,
policy,
but
we
is
have a
it in this
separate policy
is-
for that,
I think we
Yeah.
had this,
Is
isn't
it
it? I forget
In the
this
other
is
policy
in-
though, is it leave or when they're terminated?
leave.
I thought we covered that
No, it
too.
says here, it says pending the completion, steps must be taken to secure or prevent destruction of documents. It is the responsibility of municipal or the assistant reviewer to terminate or suspend as applicable the employee's access privilege to district
Yeah.
information
Yeah.
systems, to inventory and remove.
Where is that one?
That's
G.
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 Well. Oh, I'm
It's
still looking.
G on the new
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Oh, yeah, 'cause they added extra. What about access to the building? Is that implied?
I would see when you're saying,
Cause it specifically says information
Yeah,
systems.
you could say to the district facilities and,
this is.
or information
understood,
systems.
So, but
Yeah.
you could,
You could say the district's facilities and or information systems.
Building and email access for employees on extended leave policy.
and that's different, that's an extended leave, right? So that's if a person's taking a leave of absence. So that would probably be different versus
This.
we're putting someone on administrative leave, so when that happens, their badge is handed in, their email is turned off, they have a Chromebook that's turned in, and so that we didn't, then any other way of accessing the building,
Yeah.
all of that is,
I just think making it more clear, because
Mhm.
like, if, say you have somebody who's never dealt with this or whatever, and they go and grab this policy, you want them to not have, like, in a time where it might be a tough
Right.
situation, like, you wanna make it as clear as possible.
And that's standard operating
Yeah.
procedure, it's right in the letter, if you get put on leave, you're not supposed to contact other employees, you're not supposed to have access to, so, I mean,
Yeah.
it's fine to put it in there.
So what am I adding where? Or does G cover it?
no, I'm wondering if we should bullet that out, so it stands out, right? So right, it says paragraphs go A, B, C, and so it sticks out too in the formatting, so A, terminate or suspend as applicable to employees' access privileges to district information systems. And then
The next one would be
list would be,
facilities,
you know,
like turn off access to
terminate
facilities.
access to district facilities.
Do we have keys for anything?
No, everybody has, well, administrators have keys. Staff just have the badge.
Yep. So if a principal got
So,
put on leave, do they have a
access.
physical key?
They do.
So we need to take the key, like, you know what I mean, like, that would
Does
be.
Right,
that
that's
don't
what I'm
have
just
a key
thinking,
to their
putting it-
classrooms?
No, they do.
They do.
Do they have a key to their classroom?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Some of them
cause
do.
you can't use badges to get to classrooms.
So I would say that too.
I wish we could.
So then why don't we list, you know, badge,
Keys.
Keys if applicable.
Chromebook. I think the only, cause that, you know, lists everything that is going to be,
Because that gives you a nice checklist to think about.
Do any employees have
Do you wanna put
district?
Chromebook?
or like, maybe not
Or
Chromebook,
laptop.
but like computer.
Like,
All
I'm just saying
other- all
Chromebook
other
sounds
District.
great.
technological,
Yeah,
district
like
property.
district,
District. Technology?
District technology,
District
District
hardware?
provided technology.
Hardware?
yeah.
Hardware?
Huh?
Like not
Hardware?
techno-
Yeah.
hardware. Do any employees have district issued phones?
Some do.
So that would be that also.
I would say district issued technology.
Yeah, would cover phones and
Yeah,
computers.
yeah.
So can I just add under A, terminate or suspend as applicable the employee's access privilege to district information systems and facilities? And then cover the, what we're removing?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, I think so.
And are we saying that the personal belongings are the badge, keys, and district issued technology, or?
No,
So,
No,
so,
that's
so that's different,
So basically, like, if you're getting escorted out, you don't get to take your stuff with you, and so you
any of
leave
your
your.
stuff?
You're not supposed to, at my job, you don't take anything, and then your personal belongings get returned to you after the fact. Like your purse, your bag, like that's how it works in other places.
Yeah, that, I mean, that's, again, depending on
Yeah.
the severity of the
Yeah.
situation, but yeah, like, given the genesis here, you can certainly do that. But you just
I
have
mean,
to
it talks about getting their personal belongings back. Like, that's why it made me think that that was where we were.
Is it case dependent, or is it 100% of the time all the
Well,
time?
I think it's situation dependent.
I would say
mean,
it's
if you
given
have an
the
employee
situation.
who's
I would think so too.
been late a couple of times, when
Yeah.
you're putting on
Right,
leave
we're
with
not gonna
pay, I
keep
don't
their
think you would lock them down,
car
but
keys and-
depending on the nature of the allegations.
Right,
it
I know
could
what
very
we're all
well
thinking
work.
about, like, to
Yeah.
a certain extent, but like, I think case dependent, I
Yeah.
think gives us some flexibility,
Mhm.
right?
So, under C, would it be to
Yeah, districts
inventory
have
and
as well.
secure?
I'm sorry,
Badge,
So when
in,
we
like,
look to start this, we check, and then, well, I didn't see anything, that's why. I
to
went-
inventory and secure.
Cool.
the employees' badge, keys, right? District issue technology,
Yeah, I think I would put and after the keys. And badge, keys, and district issue technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna move the personal belongings down to the third one.
So when it says to inventory and remove. Or request removal of the employee's personal belongings. It says removal of, which means removal of their personal belongings out of their space, right? Like their office, their classroom. Does it mean that you're keeping them or you're just telling them to,
Probably depends.
right?
Like
I mean,
if-
I'm thinking,
It's probably like phones.
depending on the situation.
Right,
And you have every right to keep, like she just said her phone, like someone's personal cell phone. Do we have a right to keep that person's personal cell phone if we're saying you're being put on administrative leave?
I mean,
It
again, I
probably
think it depends on
depends.
the nature of the allegation and if the police are involved, I mean, I wouldn't want it to be misconstrued that, like
Yeah.
I said, some, person's missed a couple of days or something, all of a sudden,
Right, and
we're
then
hanging on to their
taking
phone
it.
and car
Yeah.
keys and telling them they can't.
So I think we should put that in there under C, that it is situational.
Even like as warranted by the situation or as
Mhm.
warranted by the allegations.
To inventory and remove, or request removal of the employee, like that, I'm a little confused on request removal of.
That to me sounds like somebody gets
Like somebody gets
walked
the
off.
choice?
No, like somebody gets walked off or whatever, and
Yeah.
their spouse comes to pick them up, and
Yeah.
the car is here. So the car is sitting in the parking lot, and so you were asking the employee, please remove your vehicle from, like, that to me is an example.
Yeah, I was thinking about it in a way of like, say something happens and you walk somebody out, like you immediately have to walk them out of the building and they have stuff that's theirs in the building, you would wanna inventory what those things are, note what you're giving back, and then give it
Got it.
back to the
Yeah.
employee. That's how I was reading it, like, so say like, you know, you take, maybe they were in a different space, they leave from the gym, you're not gonna walk them to get their stuff, like, then you get a list and basically document it.
Like, come get your winter jacket or
Yeah,
something like
whatever.
that, yeah.
There's a reason it's in there for some reason, but I'm trying to think of, I don't know where the original source.
Well, you also don't wanna tell someone you're being put on administrative leave and then walk them through the entire building and
No,
then
you don't.
you don't
Yeah.
know, you know, the emotion,
No,
and
no,
how
no.
they handle something, you know what I mean? So
That's where you would, that's where I could
you're
see
not
you
going
would be
to
getting their personal
do-
belongings, so they could request and say, hey, I need this, this, and this.
Yeah.
You would document it and say, you know, on this date, the principal went in and got this, this, and this, we returned it to the employee.
Yeah,
like-
again, I think it's situation dependent. I need my keys and okay, fine, as
Yeah.
opposed to, hey, can I grab my personal laptop over there that looks just like the district laptop? And
Yeah.
no, that
Mhm.
stays until we
Yeah,
get a
can
better
work it
handle on
through,
things,
yeah.
yep.
Okay.
So is G good as it is, or do we need to make additional changes?
First sentence, do we wanna just keep it as documents, or do we wanna make it more broader and say something like evidence?
You could say the destruction of potential evidence.
Potential evidence? Yeah, I'm just saying, cause
Mhm.
documents is sort of limiting.
Where, destruction of potential evidence? So this is the responsibility of the immediate supervisor or manager with the assistance of human resources. Is it with the assistance or at the direction of?
I think, again, for something like this, I think I'd want it to come through central office
Yeah.
first. I mean, if we're at
Say
this
with
level,
the direction
Yeah.
of human resources, not assistance.
But if it's coming through this office,
at least, what do we use for the other language, like, or designee? I mean, in my mind, if we're going to be keeping someone's property or not letting them have access to the things and taking away their keys, I would want that to be a decision that would come from you two,
right,
at least initially. Now, whether we have the principal effectuate it, the director of facilities effectuate it, whatever it is,
but if it's coming
Should-
from us too, it would be with the assistance of human resources,
Yeah.
yes, not under the
Yeah.
direction of
Yeah,
human
it's with-
resources, yeah.
Under the direction of means HR tells you what to do.
Correct.
It's we're talking about the
Right.
opposite. We're talking about the like you asked for HR's help with
No,
the-
so I think we want to keep it the way it
Yeah.
was.
We do?
Yeah,
Well,
But it
but no,
doesn't,
but
it
she's
doesn't
adding at the
say
direction
at the
of the
direction of the
superintendent.
Okay,
superintendent.
okay, sorry.
with the
Right, and
assistance
that way
of.
that's in there.
Yeah.
yeah.
It is the responsibility of the immediate supervisor or manager at the direction of the superintendent / their designee with the assistance of human resources. Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna move this pending the outcome of the situation about the, whatchamacallit, the personal, because, let me get back to it.
Jen, the sentence you had there that you were just working on, I'm sorry, would it make more sense, just for the sake of wordiness, if it was just, it is the responsibility of the superintendent / designee with the assistance of human resources, or do we need that immediate supervisor or manager in there?
You probably don't, because the
'Cause
designee could
doesn't
be the
superintendent
immediate
designee
super-
kinda like cover
Yeah, I
that?
would envision it, if it's a facilities issue, you would say, hey, director of facilities, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
But it would come from you guys.
It is the responsibility of.
Of the
The superintendent, yeah.
So down here under H is investigations shall be conducted in an expedited manner and personal belongings shall return to the employee as soon as possible. I'm gonna move that, keeping the stuff secure down to that.
Investigations shall be conducted in an expedited manner, circumstances allow, and personal belongings shall be returned to the employee as soon as feasible.
I would,
I don't know,
I would leave
think-
that. Right, you were gonna, I would leave,
Cause that's getting into, I'm just thinking, try to process, like linear process, like the first one's getting into like the process for being placed on leave and what are the steps taken, and the next one's getting into the investigation being conducted.
Yeah, I
Right.
guess, like, in my mind, I was thinking, we're saying here, we're gonna make every effort to keep the employee's belongings secure. And then there's another sentence that says, personal belongings shall be returned to the employee as soon as feasible. Like, do those two things belong together, I guess?
Yes, those two things do.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think they belong separate, because the belongings being returned, there's some belongings that are gonna be returned upon completion of the investigation, right? So there's gonna be some that could be returned before the investigation, but there's gonna be some that need to be held until the investigation is seen through.
But regardless of when we return them, we're going to endeavor to keep them secure.
Yes. I guess I'm thinking of like, I kind of read this as a process, you know what I mean?
I do too, I would.
So I
leave
read it as like,
just the
step
way it
one is gonna be secure the items.
Okay.
We're gonna
And
keep them
have it.
secure, and
You're
then
gonna
we'll
do the
maybe
investigation.
give them back to you
When
at
it's
the
done,
end.
then you
Correct.
would.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's okay that it's stated in there almost, it's twice, it's in there twice, because that is within the process of.
should we include something about it being done in writing?
Mm.
I would prefer that, even if it's not a full at the conclusion of the investigation, shall be notified of the outcome of the investigation, and whatever further steps shall be taken. I mean, something in there should reference it's in writing.
Shall be notified in writing
Yep.
of the outcome of the investigation
Mhm.
and what further steps?
Should we also, in addition to it being in writing, so say like a superintendent sends an email or, whatever it might be, do we also wanna indicate that both pieces of paper be put in the employee's file? Because if you're thinking about like if leadership changes and different things like that, it's not gonna, even if you did it in writing, it's nowhere to memorialize it.
We could, it's going to go in their file, right, so we should put that in there, cause
Yep.
that is what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah,
No
so
matter
I
what
would,
they
There's
do,
no
right?
question.
Even if they're exonerated, you want that
yeah,
in
you
the
want it
file,
in
so
there,
it's clear.
yeah, so I would, I'm thinking, it's not just in writing, but it's also a copy of this, like a copy of
Mhm.
the written correspondences should be
Right,
in
cause
the
I could write
employee's-
it and then do
Yeah,
nothing.
if you just followed it how we have
Yeah.
written it now, you wrote it, you gave it to them, but there's no like record of that.
So do we wanna add that in both spots where we're
Yes.
saying in writing?
Yeah. I think both should be
So it's like just a sense of documentation shall be preserved in the employee's personnel file.
Or could we even just put that at the end, all documentation?
All documentation shall
Yeah.
be,
And
yeah.
that way, because otherwise we're gonna have to put that a few
All
times at the end, I would just put all documentation related to the investigation.
I wouldn't just be, I would, cause I wouldn't want someone to read that literally and then in the, outside the context of a Title IX, be able to say, well, I want all the notes and I want all the witness statements, so it's not,
So I would say any
Notifications.
any
any official
Official-
notifications
formal-
or something
okay,
like
official-
that.
Any official
Formal
notifications
letters.
or determinations?
Mhm.
Yeah, yep.
Yep. The other thing I'm thinking about, and I don't know if this belongs in there, but just kind of circling back to what we talked about earlier, is any public communications regarding the conclusion of an investigation. Do we wanna replicate the
So-
language from earlier
I
about
think,
that?
Yeah, we
Jen
talked
added
about
the
that at one
CE
point.
above, right? Is that what that was referencing?
I just say CE above for communicating post-investigation status.
As needed, cause if we didn't do any if you communicated
Yep.
here, then you need to close that, if you communicated here.
Okay, so we kinda, that covers that,
Mhm.
okay.
asking this question, are there any state laws or RIDE guidance on this topic?
I would suggest no.
Cool. Seems like something that could be standardized.
Is there anything else?
I think something that would be helpful for me before it gets to the, like, we can move this forward, but getting feedback from, like, a couple building administrators might be helpful, just to see if it reads clearly to the folks that more closely supervise the employees. That just might be helpful. It could happen, like, I'm comfortable pushing it forward to the school committee, but before the school committee approves it, I think that might be helpful, just to get
We
some,
can send it to the admin and ask them for any feedback.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think any situations like these, building level people are gonna be, they're gonna be following the lead of the central office
And
people.
pretty much they tell
Yeah.
us and then we
Yeah.
lead
Yeah.
the investigation, but we'll send it. Once I know we're set with the red line, I'll PDF it and send it out.
You just throw a draft, like a watermark on it, so.
I'll
Jen,
get
do
that
you
done
wanna-
for you by tomorrow latest, that way they have plenty of time to review it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable though, like,
Yeah,
making
no,
a
I was
motion
just saying
now,
that way
yeah.
Ken can send like a, cause it won't be red line when it goes out because it's brand new, so
Mhm.
I'll just clean this up,
Okay.
get it to you by tomorrow, and then you can send it out.
Sounds good, thank you.
Do you need a motion, Jen?
Yeah, please.
I move that we move this new policy, to the school committee.
I'll second that.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, we should also show it to the
Hmm?
unions.
Hmm?
Do we want to show the leadership of the unions?
Hmm.
I mean, you can, that's certainly within your administrative
Yeah, we
period,
could.
purview though, to,
I mean, it's,
We can figure out.
yeah,
The-
we
I mean,
could,
it's-
I mean,
yeah.
it is an administrative
Yeah,
process.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just thinking.
Okay, moving on to medical marijuana. This was the draft that was provided probably a year ago at this point. I looked quickly at the current statute to make sure, that nothing had changed since this draft was provided. This came from, I think, NAC.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think this might have actually even been made for all of our clients.
Yeah.
It just mirrors the regulations.
Yeah, it mirrors the regulations. The only thing that I saw that I added a note that I did not see in this, that I did see in the regulation, was something about the school nurse visually inspecting the student's card and maintaining a copy of it in the medical file along with the compassion center license number. That looked like it was in the regulation, but not in this draft policy.
I helped to work on this policy in Cumberland, and our school nurses in general refused to do this because it's not federally approved, so they were really concerned.
There's a huge divide between this regulation and the National School Nurse
Correct.
Association, whatever that correct title is. Yep, I've had
So I
that.
feel like that's been addressed somewhat, but in some ways they get punished. It feels like a bit of a punishment if they choose not to, because then they have to find someone else to give it. I'll just tell you what we did in another district I worked in, which is if that's the case, and it's on the parent to come in and
Mhm.
give the medication. So we wrote it a little bit differently. I
It's a
did
good-
share that policy with everyone, just the Cumberland one.
Recently, or?
No, yeah, I just shared it this evening.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know.
No, I just did it while I was
Yep,
here,
that's good.
cause I'm like, you
Yep.
know, I felt like we wrote something slightly
Mhm.
different for that. I
That's a good
think we
point.
wrote, I'm trying to see something like that,
So where we have four, it would be, because just so that everybody's clear, this is a RIDE regulation that we have to have a policy in place, and
Yes.
that's the reason why we're discussing this.
I think what Rachel's saying though makes sense.
Yeah,
But
no,
then-
yeah,
but-
but
because somewhere in ours, it's, in the North Kingstown one, it states, if they won't give it, then you have to find someone who does, kind of the vibe. But the one I participated in before, we wrote that, the Cumberland School Department has determined that unless a school nurse is required to administer medical marijuana by mandatory statute regulation, no school nurse will administer medical marijuana.
So could I have just a
I don't
question,
know.
because I've seen the clients that I have that have adopted this,
Yep.
they do it a little, I mean, I guess
Little
the
bit different?
situation, well, the situation, and we actually had it come up, where a
Yep.
parent had legitimate, all the documentation, everything, and both parents worked. And the
Mhm.
child
Mhm.
needs to take it during the day, and they were like, by law, they're allowed to take it, so you need to figure it out. And I think actually, that's probably true. I think it's preferable to have the parent come in and do it. I think in that case, there was a discussion at the building level, and maybe a building administrator
Mhm.
oversaw it with some, not assistance from the nurse, but some oversight from the school nurse. But just keep that in mind too. If you
Yeah.
say it's gotta be a parent, and a parent says, I
I think we
can't,
put designate, they designated somebody, cause we had the same situation happen for a seizure disorder, which makes sense. But I also understand the school nurse's point of view.
well, and the regulations specifically allow them not to give it if they don't want to,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, I did find, let's see, in North Kingstown says, I just saw something that I found a little bit interesting. Where was it? It's funny, you have it and then you lose it. Number 2, under administration of medical marijuana by a school nurse, it says, no school nurse shall be subject to disciplinary action by the Pipical Rhode Island Professional Licensing Board solely for following a appropriate certification to administer medical marijuana. Do we actually have control over that? Andrew?
I believe that's right out of the regulation.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like we don't have control over that. Hmm.
Well, as written, you're not wrong, right? If the Rhode Island Professional Licensing
Yeah,
Board
we're
of
not.
Nurses wanna do anything, I suppose they could, but that's right from the,
Yeah, the
The
template that they gave.
it's right from the
yeah.
regulation, and I think also, if I recall correctly, when we put this together, we had some input from
Mhm.
some school nurses,
Mhm.
and they asked that specifically be in there just to make it crystal clear, cause again, the
Mhm.
the
They're
national
really
organization
worried,
is-
you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So do we wanna add something like under 4 where it says schools whose school nurse refuses to administer marijuana shall make arrangements to blah, 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 either by the parents or by another, like,
Designee is how we wrote it, I think, before, but.
Yeah, you could certainly by, either by
Don't we,
parents or
like-
another designee. I mean, I think as it's written, it is vague, but I think it's deliberately vague to allow for whether it's a principal, whether it's
Mhm.
a teacher who's willing to do it, whether it's who knows.
but it would have to be like an employee designee, like I couldn't have Aunt Sally come in and take care of it for me.
So,
That's how we did it. Actually, the family would take the kid out for a break and, yeah.
I don't have
It
a
was
problem
oil.
with that, I just think that I don't know that you can require that,
Yeah,
that's
I
my
know.
only point. I
Mhm.
think
yeah, like
that-
you can't.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand
Just
that.
like anything, you couldn't prohibit the student's learning, like if,
No,
if
you
a
can't
parent wasn't
remove
able
them.
to.
They're
their
legally
parent wasn't able
entitled to,
Yeah. Yep.
as long as
Get
they're
their
following this
medicine,
process,
yeah.
they're legally entitled to get this medicine, so I
Yep.
don't think we can say, unless
Mhm.
mom or dad does it, you can't take it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would just say like general, like something about which could be a parent / guardian or like building designee, right? Or so,
Or something,
other,
some
like something
designee,
other,
yeah.
some other designee.
Yeah, I mean, you could leave it open for parent too, I mean, that's certainly
Yeah,
not
that's
an
why I
issue.
think we wrote was or
If parent or
designate.
guardian has the ability to come in and do it and wants to do
Yeah.
it, beautiful.
And then number 3, I'm a little confused by 2. I think we wanna say applies to all students in that particular building authorized to use medical marijuana. So it says, nothing in this protocol requires a school nurse to administer medical marijuana to a student, provided that the school nurse's decision not to administer medical marijuana applies to all students authorized to use medical marijuana. I don't think you mean all students in the district, I think you mean all districts that they serve, that nurse serves, correct?
I would think it's the whole district, like why, I
Oh,
mean,
okay,
you
so
can't
fine.
say, I'm gonna give it to you, but I'm not gonna give it to you, it's, if you're gonna administer.
No, I thought that was meant by each individual nurse.
What part are you on?
Number
Right.
3,
I read that as like if I'm the school nurse and I say I'm not going to give it to this child in Stony Lane, I cannot then go administer it to a student at Hamilton.
that's what I mean, that's
Yeah.
the individual, but the way I read this is that if one school nurse says no, then
There's like 8
none,
think
no,
she's on
no
the list.
students are
Yeah.
authorized to use
Going
medical
through this.
marijuana. Applies to all the students are authorized. I think it's authorized to use marijuana.
So you wanna
that-
say
that-
like an individual school nurse?
That the nurse, yeah,
I mean,
the nurse serves.
it does say the school nurse, school nurse's decision not to administer medical marijuana applies to all students authorized I mean, I guess, yeah,
Do you see what I mean?
I do, I mean, I'm reading it as I think
Wait, I
Jen
don't see
said,
what
if I'm traveling between
Yeah.
schools, it's students that I can't say,
It's their
I'm going to
serve,
administer it to
right.
Jen, but I'm not going to administer it to Dan.
But if we're both nurses, just because I say no doesn't mean you
Correct.
can't say yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
But I'll also say they offer covering each other. So that's where I think it gets a little wiggly.
And substitutes.
Yeah, they're often like, Deb Woods at DA is often going over to Hamilton to cover, or someone else, they're covering each other. So are you talking about the
I think
I
it's the
think it's the
individual
nurses
school
they
nurse's
serve.
decision. I think it's the
Yes.
school, so quite frankly, if I'm
I-
covering
that's how
two
I read-
schools,
I
as
know
well,
it's
if
a
I'm,
mess.
or if I do it at the high school, let's say, and for some coverage reason I end up at one of the elementary schools,
I won't give it there either.
I won't, but if I do give it at the high school, I'll give it there as well. I
Yeah.
think it's that
the
nurse's
employees.
practice needs to
Yeah.
be consistent.
Yeah, that's what I think is the intent, but when I read this, I'm not sure.
I don't know, that's the way I read it.
Let me read it.
Yeah, read it again. Maybe I've read it too many times. What if we said requires a school nurse to administer medical marijuana to a student they serve? Provided that the school nurse decision not to administer medical marijuana applies to all students authorized to use medical marijuana under their service. I think that's the piece that is missing to me.
I don't think so, because if you're under my service today, but then I get called into somebody else, like those.
Then
students-
they're under their service though.
Right, but, yeah, I don't know.
The sentence is just bad. Like, nothing in this protocol requires a school nurse administrator to administer medical marijuana to a student. Then, part of the sentence is really clear. And then it gets, provided that the school nurse's decision not to administer medical marijuana applies to all students authorized to use medical
That's where
marijuana.
I
That
get-
second part of the sentence is just
That's the part
grammatically
that I'm-
garbage.
It's directly from the regulation.
Yeah.
Well,
What I'm getting from that though is
respectfully,
that
do
they
you remember
get,
that?
Respectfully,
they gotta be consistent.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
get that too,
that's what
but,
it is.
but this says to all students authorized to medical marijuana, not the one that school nurse provides for. So you could read this saying,
Oh,
if one
can't
nurse
change it
says no,
anyways.
it's everybody.
We shouldn't change it because it's referencing the
Mhm.
law.
Yeah.
We have to leave it. I would recommend leaving it because it's in the part of the policy that is referencing the general law. So I wouldn't
All
change
of
their
it's
language.
referencing the general law.
No, but like this particular part says pursuant to RIGL.
Okay, as long, I just, the way I read that is if that school nurse says no, then anyone authorized to use medical marijuana, it's a no. Not that individual nurse's decision.
So
They
anyone
don't,
district-wide?
they can't be, that's how I read it, yeah. Applies to all students authorized to use medical marijuana.
But that nurse's decision applies to all
Yeah,
that.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at it as it
Yeah,
requires the
it's-
school
there's no
nurse
comma.
as an individual is
Yeah.
making that choice.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, but I think because it's the language that's dictated there, I won't change it.
So like, let's hypothetically
But
say,
they're not
School
applying
nurse.
the rules.
school nurse takes a particular position.
Stance, yeah.
That school nurse, has to go on leave or something, they bring in another school nurse, that new school nurse now would then apply that person's own professional
They can make
judgment,
their own
correct?
The
individual
whole thing is
decision.
that it's the school nurse
It's the
can't
school
apply
nurse.
their
They just can't pick
desire.
and choose what they
yeah,
wanna do with it.
Correct.
discriminatorily.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
has
I
to be
understand
either
the
I do it or I
intent.
don't
Yeah.
do it, and that's it.
I got a little nervous when it says, that last part, applies to all students authorized to use medical marijuana. It doesn't say under that school nurse, that's all. And keep in mind that people who write these regulations don't have to
I
actually use
think
them.
I think what we're kind of disputing is like almost the grammar of this
I don't-
sentence a little bit, right?
No, cause it says all students. Not all students under that nurse's care.
I'm reading it as all students under that nurse's care.
Okay.
That's how I'm reading it, but that's why I'm saying it's like almost a grammatical dispute.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm not sure that additional part, was says additionally in the 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm looking in the law right now to see if it
Which one are you
was
looking
pulled
at?
right out of that. So
Oh,
on
additionally.
21, Rhode Island General Law 21-28.6-4, and where it says additionally, all medical marijuana to be administered, no school nurse shall be subject. I'm not sure that's
I
directly.
think that's in the regulation, not the law.
Okay.
Yes, the regulation,
Yeah.
that's
It's different,
Yeah.
yeah.
where all this got pulled from.
everything in here is either from the regulation or from the general statute.
Good division.
The only, like I said, the only thing that we didn't have in there was the inspecting the license and putting the
Copy of the
compassion
plan.
center.
You put those up in 5, we have to.
Fine,
The documentation must include.
Yep.
gotcha.
The compassion center number and ID card or something like that.
Yeah.
On number, page 1 and number 5. I'm ready, is that a question?
Or if it's not the school, yeah.
Which one?
So page 1, number 5.
Yep.
It says the school nurse, parentheses, or building administrator, if a nurse is not in the building, shall document, each dose. Just kind of connecting to that conversation we just had, I'm assuming that that means even if the nurse doesn't give it, they are still the one making the documentation?
So that is absolutely my interpretation
Yeah.
of this, and I think that's the legal obligation. I
Yeah.
will tell you, you may get some pushback. I've been to a couple of meetings with school nurses
Yeah.
in different districts to talk about this, and they feel like even participating in this part is a problem. My legal opinion is it's not. They
Mhm.
don't, if they don't want to administer it, they don't have to, but they can certainly stand next to it if it's,
And
you know,
document.
Assistant Principal Hennius, and I'm going to be the one handing out, they would still document what's happening. They're not,
Yeah, it seemed
Lesson
very,
they're not-
it seemed very intentional,
Yep.
So just wanted to like make sure that
Yeah, I think that's accurate, Andrew, because they document a whole bunch of other things that they may not
Right.
administer.
or to Erin's point, it could have just as easily said, you know, or building administrator if a nurse is not in the building or refuses to administer, it could have. you
yeah,
know,
but I think it is
Yeah,
a
no.
purpose,
Yeah, that's what I mean, they could have clarified that if they didn't mean otherwise.
Yeah.
Number 3, just in the regulation, it says nothing in this part requires a school nurse, and we have on here, nothing in this protocol. I think it's important that it says part, not protocol, because protocol could be referring to this entire document, versus part is referring to that section of the
Mhm.
regulations. I think we should just
So
change that.
under administration, under 3, nothing in this part.
Yes, nothing in this part, so instead of protocol, the word part.
Oh, wait a second, because up here it says pursuant to Rhode Island general laws, a school nurse may administer blah, 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 must follow all requirements of the Department of Health regulations and this protocol.
What page are we on?
So I'm on, the last page, I'm looking at the last page, what Jen just read, then it says additionally,
Number 3, you said? Nothing in this protocol.
and in the regulation, it does say part, not protocol.
It does say part,
Yeah.
okay.
I just think because it's referring to that section of the regs,
Under that.
because basically it goes back to saying, like, if I'm the nurse, and I'm saying I'm not gonna administer marijuana, that's medical marijuana.
Like,
That's me for all students I serve, not just student A, it's student, so.
So nothing in this part requires, yes?
School nurse.
Yes.
They have very strong feelings about this, the
Yeah.
nurses.
When you're ready, Jen, I have another question.
Go ahead.
On page 2, number 7, it says the locations on the school campus where medical marijuana may be administered shall be clearly identified in writing. Should we clearly identify in writing in this document? Like, where is that, like, what does that mean? I know it's from the language of the other people, but like, do we need to fill in like the blanks for
So,
our schools?
in the districts that have adopted this, there was conversation about that, and what generally came out is different buildings have access to different, you know, it might be the nurse's office in one spot, it might be the principal's office in another spot, depending on what they
Mhm.
had. So they just, the ones that I've dealt with have just left it at that and
Yep.
left it up to a building decision, but
So where did they put it in writing and how?
probably at the building level. If this is, elementary school A, it'll be administered in the nurse's
Yep.
office.
Would it, for consistency's sake, make sense to have it say, be put in writing and submitted to central admin?
Probably not a bad idea.
Like, you know,
Yeah,
like,
that way we know that they've got them and
yeah, like, I obviously trust the building folks to decide where is best, but I feel like there should be some grabbing of that, like, just so that
So you know it's done.
just because it's specifically saying in writing.
And provided to the superintendent, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's central administration, but I don't know who, like, it
Superintendent
So
or
we're
designee.
is this, which on number 2?
it's page 7, no,
No,
page
no.
2, number 7. It was the part about where the location could be administered, but it says, shall be clearly identified in writing. And I'm saying, like, it should be, and provided to, like, the superintendent. Like, it's not just in writing in somebody's drawer, like, it's, yeah.
So maybe we put building administrator and superintendent. It should go to
Mhm.
building administrator as well as the superintendent.
Yeah, like if the nurse is saying we're gonna administer it here.
To each building administrator. So just because it's what we're talking about on campus, this is.
Who's making the decision of where the location is? Because that's not clear in here.
yeah, I mean, that,
If I'm just going back and reading, it's just listing kind of like, the,
You could
How
put
about should be
clearly,
clearly
process,
identified
but-
by the building administrator?
you could put clearly administered in writing, and approved by, provided and approved for approval by building administrator and superintendent.
How about and provided to the superintendent by each building administrator?
Ken was talking about who approves that though.
like who's coming up with the location? Because it just says the locations on the school campus where medical marijuana may be administered shall be clearly, but who's saying
Well,
where that location may be? It doesn't say, like, is it the nurse at each building, or is it us as part of the policy? We're saying, in writing the policy, that the administration of medical marijuana will be, or medical marijuana will be administered in the clinic at each school building.
Where do we administer other medication?
In
Is
the
it
clinic.
only in the clinic?
Might be a school office if,
That's why,
The
like
nurses
I
in
said, we
there.
can get into that level, but that's why
So-
it was left blanket or left general in my other districts, because they weren't sure whether it was gonna be a principal's office, a vice principal's
So I think-
office,
so
a
I think
nurse's
it-
office.
but I think it should say like who's, so I think it should say the building administrator in conjunction with the superintendent will identify in writing the location on the school campus where medical marijuana may be administered. That way you know who's making that decision.
So the building administration in conjunction with in writing. Okay, and then where is that kept? Cause I think that goes back to Erin's point, like, so it's in writing, floating around, like, so you're identifying it in writing, and then like, where is that?
What's a different word for like storing documentation?
Could be,
Like,
or
Retaining?
or could you say, filed with the policy. And then they have the policy at the school and it's filed with the policy, so you know that that's where it's being kept for each building. Right, and it's, something that's kept at the school level by the building administrator.
Is there like some magic like nurse book that each nurse has? You know what I mean, like.
Well, no, it matters for
Medical
subs and stuff,
terminology.
but also like, it,
I bet
I
you-
can't
They
understand.
have, they
part of
have
this-
like their, I mean, they have their book of
Oh,
like,
magic
what
nurse.
medications and protocols, so within that.
That's what I mean, like.
There is,
Yeah.
there is,
Yeah,
they
so it could
definitely
be
keep,
with that.
Cause I know like when I used to have to
Detailed
go in
records,
to
yeah,
like drop
yeah.
off medication, you have to
Yeah.
sign the binder and you have
so
to
can we
do all
just put
that.
something in there, we're trying to say where this will be kept, where it will be on file, that, about the location of the administration? Is that
Yeah,
what we're
so like
saying?
if you have a substitute nurse
Yeah, so
that
we wanna,
day-
do we wanna just say it'll be kept on file in the nurse's office?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this policy is you can see the politicians wordsmithing stuff to get it passed.
Yep.
Because there's, also what's interesting about it is there's no like there, you can't, for lack of a better word, smoke, like there's, it says it in here somewhere,
Yeah, it
and
says
so
it, yeah.
we're so I'm thinking about like the fact that it's like, we're talking about like pills and stuff, but I think it's almost written in a different way because it probably evolved over time.
Having this
It's-
conversation
it's
with the school
complicated.
nurses is fascinating,
Yeah.
and I don't mean that sarcastically,
Yeah.
they have very strong, but they
Yeah.
bring up a lot of scenarios that you wouldn't necessarily think of, and they're,
Yeah.
they're very opinionated on this.
Yeah,
I think it's, you know, if we
yeah.
write like that, then this will be filed in the nurse's office, and that way we have it kept there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any personal experience with this, in my experience.
No.
I haven't.
I-
Sounds
I'm
like Rachel
very-
has,
Very
yeah.
upset nurses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just haven't had, it's never crossed paths.
Yeah, and
And
I
to
just
be
wanna
hon-
be clear, like this is only coming forward because we are
Yeah,
required to
oh,
have.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you,
So-
in
Yeah.
the
You have
district
to have a
that
policy.
have this,
Before
I've
we-
never heard of anything beyond the passage of the policy.
Yeah.
Which would lead me to believe it's either a complete non-issue or, you know what I
We
mean?
should have
Most of the dialogue and
review
and
this, that
controversy
way,
was
you know,
in
if there's
those
anything-
meetings.
Was in the passage. of the policy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Haven't had a
But
single one.
also with the
Yeah.
caveat of,
Yeah.
we have to,
We don't
like,
have
we,
choice.
it's, yeah, it's mandated.
They actually liked having a natural policy on it because
Yeah.
then
It helps them.
it helped them. Yeah, so that wasn't an issue. They were just,
Rob
Didn't
and I
like the
have to
idea.
get
I know, I
it
was watching,
set.
so are we gonna move this forward or are you gonna review it with the nurses first?
I think the
I
nurses should
think we should
review.
review it, and then
Okay.
we can move it forward to the May meeting, maybe? Oh, no, it'd have to come back here first.
It has to come back here
Yeah.
first.
So let's have them review it, and
Okay.
then we'll bring it back to this.
Okay.
and
Okay.
then do that.
All right, I know you two have to go,
Just a
so
minute.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second,
Okay. Very much, Lee.
thank you.
Thank you.
We do have to set a date for the next meeting though, so we look at their,
I thought you'd already said it for,
I have
The
a whole,
29th?
I have a whole